Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Hummel Insurance Group for sponsoring today's show. Hummel Insurance Group now owns and operates 7 different offices located throughout the tri-state area. For over 50 years now, the Hummel Insurance Group has been assisting customers with insurance needs and questions. For all your insurance needs, contact Hummel Insurance Group at 812-537-1785.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and I'm joined here with my partner in crime, my husband.
I have down written ministry, not crime. Holy cow.
Well,
when did we shift roles?
Who reads our outline anyway? So I'm like,
but mine says ministry, yours says crime.
Actually, I thought you wrote that I'm joined here in hand with my husband.
You have to know, I'm not a big PDA guy, public display of affection, so then that drives Linda crazy. But so yeah, we're probably.
I think one of our early arguments in college was not.
Why don't you just hold my hand?
You would not hold my hand walking through campus. So
because it's weird, just weird. It's private.
Oh, that really just kind of tees us up for our conversation today. We're going to be talking about insanity. When we start having those arguments over and over again, it seems like we're arguing about the same thing.
The same argument, different day.
Yeah. Not that we ever did that or anything.
You know, how many times we've mentioned this before on the show? The number of times I'll say not so much lately, but early on when we were writing shows, that we would get into arguments about writing the show or something that was in the show. It was like, yeah, this is going to go really well on this show.
Well, yeah, and you know what? If you are having arguments with your spouse or someone in your family, like, humor sometimes helps, but you got to use it in the right appropriate time. Because Merle would try to break it up with a joke. Like, I'm not really in the mood to laugh yet.
Sometimes those land and sometimes they don't.
So they're landing today because we haven't been arguing. But yeah. But before we get started.
Wait till we get to the end of this show. Yeah.
But before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been with us since the very beginning, and also Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Hummel Insurance Group for their support of Rock Solid Radio and really ultimately this ministry of Rock Solid families.
All right. You know, I'm reminded of a certain passage.
What?
So we're going to talk about arguing. Why do we keep arguing about the same things, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen or read that one scripture? I think it's in Proverbs somewhere.
Don't.
In fact, I think it's exactly
I did
Proverbs
read in the notes that you were going there.
27:15, and I think it says something like, a quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of a leaking roof in a rainstorm.
You can tell it was written by a man, you know? I mean, I think more scripture need to be written by women, so we'd probably have a lot of those argumentative husbands too.
Yeah, well, for men, they just always use the word fool. Proverbs is filled with scriptures about fools.
Oh, you said it, I did not.
All right, so yeah, we do thank our sponsors and all that, but man, we are closing out 2021 and already looking at a lot of activity coming up in 2022. So we want to just touch base quickly on some of those. On February 12th, we have Rock Solid Families Rock Parent. That's how we're naming that. Yeah. Families Rock Parenting Workshop. And that's going to be at the Urban Crest Church in Lebanon, Ohio. Mm-hmm. So mark that on your calendar if you're interested.
Yeah, everybody's welcome.
That's an open party kind of thing. The other one is February 19th, where we are doing a Secure the Knot. So this was a retreat that we did back, it was in November or October?
Beginning of
November, we did that, and we're doing another offering of that, and it's going to be February 19th. This time it will be hosted at Bright Christian Church.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting you more details on that. But that's a full Saturday. And so what a great opportunity there to just dig in on marriage stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny, like I'm protecting Super Bowl weekends and stuff like that. So we're making sure we don't do these things on Sundays and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, if you did not have an opportunity to come Secure the Knot when we did it last time, it was pricey because we had an overhead as far as like hotel rooms and all those meals. And it does include lunch and breakfast. This one does. It's going to be a lot more reasonable and affordable for families, I believe. So again, February 19th, it's a full day workshop. We're calling it again, Secure the Knot. So we really would love for you to join us. But, hun, we are super excited about some work that we're doing, and we're really working hard to get it done. But the first quarter of 2022, we're going to be launching an online marriage program called Rock Solid Marriages, where we're really going to take our coaching experience and our backgrounds and education and what we've done for the last 30 plus years, each of us, and we're going to take it to a program that we are writing and going to be offering to couples all over the country. We're really going to be opening it up, and because it's going to involve some group Zoom calls, it's going to involve some one-on-one, it's going to be involving some assessments and some check-ins and some homework and really some tools, practical tools. So we're really, really excited about that. So if this is something, like we're talking about today, arguments, if this is something that's a reoccurring pattern for you guys, then really we'd love for you to join us, and we'll be talking about that more.
Yeah, I can't wait, because I'm one of those kind of people that I don't, and I know you are for sure, hon. Like, if I don't like to spend time on things that I go, I just don't think this is very worth it. I don't think it's very valuable. And so we are going out of our way to make sure. Linda and I are very practical in the sense of, listen, if you're going to come do something with us, we have to have takeaways. Like, okay, so how am I going to actually apply this? What's the practical sense of this? So that's how we operate. So whatever we work on in that class, it's not just going to be a bunch of theory. It's going to be like, okay, here's what you're going to start practicing. Here's how you go about this. And I just love that part, because people get to see the fruit of their labor a lot faster, and it kind of motivates them to the next step.
Yeah, I mean, we are doing our metrics for 2021, and we've had over 1,000 coaching sessions between the two of us. We're just two people in an office in St. Leon, Indiana. And so we know that there's only a finite amount of time that we can come and see couples face-to-face one-on-one. And so our real prayer was, how do we exponentially help more couples? How can we strengthen our communities and our areas nationwide, one family at a time? And so this is something that we really believe will exponentially reach more families. And so we're excited about that.
For sure. Yeah. So let's get into our topic, Linda. So, so as we always talk, Linda and I struggle with about everything we've ever talked about on this show.
Hang on, you were almost going to say Linda. I was going to
say, we both struggle, and sometimes, you do need to learn to laugh at things, but sometimes you got to go a little deeper, because things start to hurt at a different level, especially over years. And Lynn and I use a story often in some of our marriage workshop stuff, because it really quickly in our marriage taught us what was going on much deeper than what we thought was going on. Okay. And so we call it the argument of the blue pants. So, hon, why don't you open up a little bit? Just we usually act it out in front of the conference that we're at, but it would be kind of silly to act it out here.
We're going to have to really have a good knockdown drag out to replace this one, because this was in our first year of marriage, and Merle was a teacher, and I was just starting to teach, actually. And so he's the kind, and I don't know if there's any guys out there, but he doesn't like to buy clothes throughout the year. He just likes to go and buy like a ton of clothes at one time.
I'll drop $500 like nothing.
And
but
he likes to buy like the same shirt in different colors. So anyway.
I like a uniform. I'm a blue collar man at heart.
So I was going with him. This was the first mistake of trying to help him pick out clothes for school. And we were kind of on a tight budget, and I was trying to be frugal. And so, of course, what do girls do? They go to the sale rack. So I went to the sale rack, and I found, no lie, these royal blue. It's the color of the word radio. No lie. And it was back in the days of Izod.
And it was bright. It was bright.
Polos. And I thought that they were very trendy, and they were on sale. And so it was like, you'd be losing money without buying these.
Those were not the words I used to describe those pants. And so Linda picked up the pants, and they were like $4, honestly. They were like $4. Like they were practically giving them away. And she picks them up, and I laughed at them. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like, I'm going to wear those. Okay. and I walked away. And I go, and I'm looking at some other pants, and I go into the dressing room trying some other pants on. And I hear Linda's voice out from the dressing room. I'm like, who's she talking to? And I kind of look up over the door, and she's at the cash register, and she's purchasing the blue
pants.
I came out of the dressing room pretty quickly.
Unglued, I think
I had my pants on. I'm not sure. And I ran over to the register and I said, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Honey, they're only $4. Like, these, it's worth it."
$4.
And I was like, "I'm never wearing these. I told you already, we're not buying these." No. And she's like, "You're being ridiculous about this, hon." And I'm like, "No, we're not buying them." I took the pants and I picked them up and I threw them on the floor. The lady at the register,
her eyes were like,
"Yeah, we should look her up and apologize to her." And of course, you're getting mad, and now we are storming. I'm like, "We're done," and we're storming out of the store and heading back to the car.
And the lady's kind
I
of
might have been saying bad words.
The lady's kind of looking at me like, "Did you want the pants?" Because we were in the middle of the transaction, right? So I was like, "No, we're done," but it was awful. We had an hour drive home.
Yeah.
We lived out in Batesville, Indiana at the time, and it was not a fun car ride home.
Most of it was silent. One of those silent things where you can set a glass on the tension force that's right there. It was so strong. But we were married less than a month at that point, and so we're like, okay, well, happily married so far. This is good. But we had a discussion that night, and we've talked about before, I tend to be more of an avoider until I get pushed too far, right? Like I do use a lot of like, I don't care, whatever. And a lot of times I don't really care, and I'll go with the flow with it. But I felt pushed, and for some reason, Linda really hit a button here. But this button allowed us to get to some conversation that had to go a whole lot deeper. This had nothing at all to do with blue pants.
No. Yeah.
Right.
So people are typically arguing about things when it's really not the root cause or the issue. And sometimes you may have noticed that you keep having these same arguments over and over again. Every time you ask your husband about money, or maybe every time you ask your wife about sex. And so it's kind of like, okay, this is where the title came in. Why are we creating this insanity that we just keep going back and revisiting these same arguments over and over and over again? Why don't we stop and pause? And again, sometimes you can't do it in the moment because, right, the emotions are so high. And maybe take a pause, take a time out, and then revisit this when things have calmed down and really try to drill down into some root causes.
Yeah. There are really 5 basic areas that Lynn and I find all the time. And maybe there could be another 1 or 2 out there if we really got starting to tweeze things apart. But the idea, most of our arguments are based in a control. Somebody's trying to control, or somebody's taking control away. A love, how we're feeling loved or not feeling loved.
Yeah.
Okay. A respect or a disrespect. I just don't feel respected here. And that was a lot of that argument. That our argument was really about control and respect. That was what that really boiled down to. Affection. Like not holding Linda's hand, even though she wants me to hold her hand. But that also could be sexual intimacy, that kind of thing. So it can be used as a rejection or manipulation. And finally, trust, man. And we do show after show like where trust comes up. And so these are 5 big areas that are really kind of at the root. And when you boil things down, you go, yeah, we're really not arguing about the color of the paint on the wall or what the kids are doing. What we're really arguing about is one of these foundation things. And it's something about how we're wired, whether it was a past event, whether it's our personality, that's bubbling up through this. And we haven't quite called it what it is.
Yeah. And we actually, I'm going to push pause here because we are actually working on a show that we're going to do after the first of the year, hon, on this attachment theory, because I believe that some of these deeper issues come from our childhood, come from past experiences, whether it be a boyfriend who abused us, or maybe it's a mom who neglected us, or maybe it's a trauma that we've never, ever dealt with and healed right. And so, the underlying, for instance, you mentioned affection. Well, if you didn't receive affection as a child, we kind of go into this shell, this turtle shell, where we're going to go in for protection because no one ever gave us what we needed. And so we're kind of just going to muscle it out, and we're going to just kind of, fight our way through it. And then I don't need you. I don't need you to connect. I don't want your affection. And so we're going to really dig down into those in the show coming up, because I think that we're seeing that more and more, is that we're not even really arguing. You're not even the one I'm mad at.
Right.
I'm mad at my dad, or I'm mad at my mom, or I'm mad at my first husband or my boyfriend or whatever. And so, man, if we can get healing for that and not ignore it and just we don't want to just gloss it over and pretend like it's not there, that I think there's real true healing.
Yeah. Something that we want to bring up in here, this show is kind of about insanity, right? Like doing the same argument again and again and again. One of the things we really want to be careful about is not overreacting on particular matters. Sometimes when you read a book or you listen to a show or whatever, you see it everywhere now. You're like, oh, that's all your brain thinks about. And you got to take a deep breath on some of this. It's like, okay, I remember, Hun, being in the teaching world, and you could tell the new teachers from the more veteran teachers, the new teachers, every time they heard a new idea, they were so excited and they just couldn't bring it. And the veteran teacher would be like, no, it's really the same thing. It's just got a different phrase to it. So take a deep breath. It doesn't mean it's not good. It just means take a deep breath. There's nothing new under the sun. Let's figure out what this means. Yeah.
And now we have the world of Google, right? So if you got a husband or a wife that is acting a certain way, you Google it and all of a sudden think that they're schizophrenic or narcissistic or bipolar, you know? I mean, and it's
I've determined that my husband's narcissistic because I Googled it. It may be, but everybody's narcissistic.
So your point here, Hun, is destructive patterns, right? That we see something that's repeated over and over again, and that's kind of what the show is about, is the pattern.
It's the patterns. And so patterns are what we look for, patterns when we're working with people, because those are the things that if continue and they're a destructive pattern, right? There are positive patterns, right? But there are destructive patterns. If we don't grab those, they will destruct. So that's what this is really about here.
Yeah. And so, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want you to call us and say, I'm leaving my husband because he yelled at me.
Right.
Because we all need grace, right? This is a grace-filled ministry. This is a grace-filled philosophy of, we all fall short. We all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So if we're not going to extend grace to our partner, who are we going to extend grace to?
Yeah.
And sometimes we're the hardest on our partner. And we really need to look in the mirror and say, if I was judged the same way that I'm judging my partner, would I pass?
No. No. All right. So, Hun, let's get into some actual advice. How we can help folks who are like, gosh, is this ever going to go away? Like, we've been married for 20 years and it's I don't know. I don't know how much longer I can do this, right?
Oh, we hear that so much.
Yeah. So let's give some practical advice that we talked earlier and help fish through how we're going to do this, okay?
Yeah.
The first thing that you and I like to do when we're working with people who've been arguing or bickering or whatever is, okay, wait, take a deep breath, all right? And you have to make an assessment. And the assessment has to be of your true intentions of yourself and your partner. Like, I have to assess, like, do I really think that Linda has the best intention? Okay, even though she's doing something that's hurting or bothering me or I don't like, is she working with ill intention? Like she's trying to upset me? She's trying to do that? Or is it, no, that's not her intention at all. So I have to go after the intention, all right? Because it helps me ground whether I'm going to act or react in the appropriate way.
Yeah, and sometimes you're reacting out of maybe a level of mistrust and you really haven't even acknowledged it, that maybe there is doubts or fears in you that are valid and that you've kind of just brushed it under the rug and pretended like you didn't notice or you weren't going to deal with it. And you wonder why you keep getting angry or resentful. Maybe it's because you have allowed that to brew inside you and that you really are going to have to address it. Like, I'm sorry I got upset again. I feel like there's something you're hiding. And so that's in you to let it out. That's that assertiveness in saying, this is how I feel. So we got to assess, why am I getting upset? Okay. And is my partner really, like you said, good-willed? Like, do they want my back? Do they have my good intentions? Or is it abusive? We got to really assess that.
And so, like, let's say we did, Hun, find out that somebody has ill intent. Like they've been so upset in this marriage or they don't like this marriage where it's at that maybe the love is not there anymore. And they do kind of I know this sounds kind of crazy, but they kind of hope bad things happen to this person, or that they have ill motive. And so we need to go back into that, like what's going on there, because we can't build a foundation in this marriage if the essentials of trust and intention, if those are not strong. So we might have to go back and go, hey, let's not talk about whether, we painted the wall the wrong color. Let's talk about what was the intention behind that. And we may need help to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like if we have people who are actively functioning with ill intention, that's a game changer for how we're going to go about this.
And we didn't bring this in this one, but we did a show on fighting fair. And I really want you to go and Google the rules of fighting fair, because if they're name calling, if they are just so disrespectful and unloving and nasty, like if your partner's cussing you out, we really got to get to that, because that's not okay. Okay. Or any kind of physical or verbal abuse. Like that's not okay. So let's really recognize the emotions. Why are they upset? Why are you upset? Let's take a time out. Let's like you said at the beginning of the show, take a deep breath. Okay. And let's recognize and try to figure out, where are those emotions coming from? Okay?
The best thing that happened to Linda and I on the blue pants story, okay, the best thing, and we didn't realize because it felt like the worst thing, but the best thing was the hour-long drive home, because we were put in a timeout position. Neither of us had the stamina or energy to argue for an hour. And so we just shut down, okay? And that gives yourself time to get your breath back under control, to allow your brain to calm down. I remember we actually went in the house and we both said, we just kind of went our own way. Like, I don't know, one of us may have taken a nap and the other one farted around in the garage or something, but we
You used that word. I didn't know where you were going with that.
farted around in the bathroom or whatever. But that idea that we took a break, and then when we came back with logical and rational minds.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is key here. We have to come back with that mindset.
And hun, this is so important. So please listen to us. You cannot just pretend that did not happen. Okay. If you had a blow up, and you wonder why you keep having this blow up, it's because you never dug into that blow up to figure out what went on. So please, I cannot tell you. I just told somebody the other day, I'm going to get a big rug in the middle of our office so that I can physically start putting things under the rug when they tell me about these things they've been dealing with for 20 years and never, ever try to get resolution for. And it's probably because they don't have the tools or the patience or the ability to do that. But that is where outside help's got to come in. So please do not let this fester. We say the 24-hour rule, unless it's, during the day, I say the same day. But if it's late at night and you're exhausted and you don't want to,
you can't be your best in it,
then sleep on it and go in the next day. But please, no more than 24 hours before you sit down with your partner to address the issues.
Okay, so we finally have calmed down, all right? We've recognized that there is a problem. We've admitted it. We're not going to sweep it under the carpet. Now we kind of have to have rules of engagement, okay, or ground rules. And so just look at James 1:19 says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Those are kind of some of the basic ground rules of how I have to train myself. And by the way, this is a training. This is a practice, especially if you've been practicing bad habits all along. If you were the guy who was quick to slam your fist and yell and cuss, I mean, if you practice that long enough, you become pretty good at it.
Or if that's what you saw growing up.
Yeah. But it's not helping. So here are some basic ground rules, okay? You got to treat each other with respect. And you said this before, Hunt, like the name calling. No, there's no name calling. There's no innuendos. Okay. You don't interrupt.
Even
each
tone
other.
Can really say a lot.
That sarcasm.
I love you. I love you. You know, just like, you don't.
Yeah. That whole sarcastic tone. This is not the time for thinking you're funny or cute or you're trying to get the upper hand. This is not the time for that. This is the time to respect each other and to listen to each other. Okay. We talk about this in many shows. While you're listening, don't be thinking about what you're going to say. Right? So that's one of the very first things that I always look at when I'm counseling somebody. If as soon as I say something, they are quick with a response, I know that probably about 2/3 of the way through our conversation, their brain was already on their rebuttal rather than just listening and going, okay,
Yeah.
I'm hearing you. I'm listening. Okay. And so that whole idea of us learning how to read each other's emotions and taking it in and not having to have a response, just listen.
And I'm awful at this about interrupting. Okay. I am quick to talk, and I'll just confess that. And so
Mom's the word. No.
And I need to be a better listener, because when I interrupt you, that makes you feel unheard. And so I'd be better off if I let you speak until you push pause or put a period on the end. And then what I need to do is reflect back what I heard you say. So what I heard you say is you want to go out more, or that I don't listen to you. And then, make sure that you heard that right. And so tell me what I do that makes you think I don't listen to you. Like, keep asking questions about what you heard from the listener or from the speaker. That is so important for them to feel like I'm investing in this conversation and I really do care what you say.
So, and you said you're guilty of that. I mean, I'm guilty of avoidance, right? We all come in with our deals, right? Like, you saw me when she started to confess and I went, I'm not going to say anything. Okay, so we all come in with our kind of preset personalities and past experiences that we've had. But here's the deal. I expect honesty out of Linda and I expect honesty out of me. But remember, honesty can hurt, man, right? Yeah. And so that's why I have to kind of be big boy here, and I have to sit back, and when Linda says, I feel hurt when you say this or whatever, and I want to defend myself. But she's speaking honestly here, okay? And so we have a basic expectation of honesty. We're not going to candy coat things for the sake of not. We're handling each other with respect. I don't need to throw a dagger, but at the same time, I've got to be truthful.
Yeah. And speaking to the avoider thing, Merle, I think that so many people don't want to hurt their spouse, so they just avoid those hard conversations. They avoid being honest. When they really have an opinion or they really feel strongly about something, but they just don't want to stir the pot or make anybody mad. And so that's what we call a peacekeeper. They just kind of say what everybody wants to hear. Where we want to move to being a peacemaker, where we sometimes have to have hard conversations and say honest things that hurt people, because in the long run, it's going to help our relationship and heal some unspoken wounds.
Yeah, do think about your words and think about the intentions of your words. But if your intentions are right and you're getting ready to say something that could be hurtful, yes, we do need to get it out. I've been in many sessions before where I can see something spinning in one of their heads, and I'm like, okay, what are you thinking about? Oh, no, I think I just need to keep this in. I'm like, no. I mean, we're in a protected, safe environment. I'm here as a neutral mediator. We need to get this out, because that probably is a rot.
Cancer.
Yeah, and we need to deal with it.
The Bible says, speak the truth in love, but do it with gentleness and respect. Okay. And so that's where we have to really be thinking about, okay, I want to speak the truth in love and do it with gentleness and respect. And so that's where we've got to really make sure we keep going with that.
Be very careful with your blames and your excuses. Okay. Like, we talk all the time. Linda's very good about pointing out, like, is that an I statement or is that a you statement? You make me feel versus I feel. Okay. Like, you own how you feel. You are the owner of your actions. You are the owner of your work, right? You're the owner of your response is your responsibility. And so own that with I statements and don't blame it or excuse it away.
I just had this conversation with our little teenage boy last night, because he was all pouty and mad. And I'm like, what's your problem? He's like, he named his sister's name. She makes me so mad. And I'm like, okay, we were having a conversation about laundry, and you're back from about an hour ago with your sister. Let's stay in the moment. And she's not the one that makes you mad. Yes, she does. I'm like, oh gosh, maybe you should listen to this show.
Yeah. So the last part of this is we have to train ourselves to go into the discussions and the argument resolution with, what am I going to do on me? I'm going to work on me. Yeah. Okay. When I go in saying, as soon as I can get Linda to change this trait about herself, we'll all be a lot better off. That one, that takes control out of my hands over what I can do, and two, it makes the assumption and the responsibility on her. Yeah. That does not mean that Linda doesn't have things to work on, or I don't, but it means that my focus needs to be on me, right, and working on how I'm going to control my feelings or handle my words or go about actions. That is mine. And so a focus is always on, what do I need to do to do this better?
And so when you're approaching, first of all, who's right, who's wrong, that's not the point. The point is, who's going to be the most mature to really start the conversation, the hard conversation that both of you need to have. Okay. So we're looking for maturity. Okay. And I think that's a huge problem today. Our adults are not maturing in conflict and communication.
Our culture is,
our
right?
Culture, you're right.
That's
you're
why
right.
we have, we're sue happy, we're blame happy.
Oh, we're trigger fingered happy. Yeah. And so definitely the mature one is going to go first and say, hey, can we talk? Okay. And then you're going to lead with an apology. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I blew up today. I'm sorry that I tried to tell you what to wear. Okay. That was my fault. And I should have never gone against your opinion and go and buy those pants. That was my wrong. And then Merle, then that's when he can hopefully chime in.
Yeah. And that's when I accept her apology. So I have to be very careful. If Linda said, hey, I'm sorry about that whole pants thing, my gut reaction, if I'm angry, might be, you should feel sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, like, I've seen that she stepped into this with good intention. She came in with an apology, and an apology is the best way to break down defenses. And so she just showed me that she's not being defensive. If she came in and said, you're still being ridiculous about these pants things, well, then that would be her defending, and that would put me right back on my heels. So, so that whole idea that I saw that she did that, and then I say something like, you know what, I appreciate that. And man, I'm sorry for being a jerk and how I handled myself in that situation.
Do you hear what we just did? We actually put water on the fire to put it out instead of pouring gasoline on the fire to inflame it. Like you just said before, hon, if you literally came back from that apology of, well, you should be sorry, it's your fault, then bam, you just are back into that crazy cycle again. And so it's about who is going to be the mature one to step off of this crazy fight we're having over and over and over again that's creating insanity and try a new thing. Okay. It's so powerful. And we have seen it work over and over again, not in just our own lives, but in so many couples that have put this into action.
The next part of this, try to get down to the seed, okay? Try to get down to the seed. So whether it's, you're mad because the kids didn't get picked up on time, or the blue pants, or the color on the wall, or the money expenditure, those are not what we're arguing about. Right. And so we talked about earlier about those 5 different base things that really kind of ground all of us in our arguments. Go back to those and bring it back and make statements like this, because this really brings it back to, here's what's happening to me. Like, I'm hurt because I feel disrespected. Yeah. Okay. Like, if I could have just said in front of the lady in that event, if I could have just said, I feel like you're disrespecting me, that would have hit Linda at a different level.
I've probably still been upset.
Yeah, because of how it was called out. But that whole idea, rather than us arguing about the price of pants, okay? So I feel disrespected. I'm hurt because I feel like you're trying to control me. Yeah. I'm hurt because I don't know if I can trust you.
Yeah. And by the way, that brings up a point. Try to have this conversation in private. You do not want to do it in front of your parents or the kids or your coworkers or your friends. Okay. You take a time out, you get away from the situation, and in private, you have these conversations, because no one likes to be called out or being told they did something wrong in the middle of people. And so that's something that doesn't go well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. So we got through several things. Ephesians 4:26-27 says, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Hun, before you said the idea of the 24-hour rule or let's work this out before we go to bed. This is where we're talking about here. Here's what we find. One reason why the argument continues to circle back around is because, like you said before, it never got dealt with. But here's why it doesn't get dealt with, okay? We feel that emotional storm. We're angry, we're upset, we're mad. We walk away, we finally cool down. And the whole idea of going back in the ring is like,
it can be
do
exhausting.
I really want to go there? Like, I would just rather forget it.
Yeah.
Okay. We see this all the time, right? And so 24 hours pass. Listen, the farther it goes, the harder it is to bring it back.
Yeah.
And so the next thing you know, 2 weeks have passed, and you're like, no, I forgot about it. No, you didn't forget about it. You just stored it.
Yeah.
And then something triggers it again.
Yeah.
We're back in it, but now it is compounded. It's even worse, even though it could be a smaller incident.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm just telling you, one of the favorite phrases I heard growing up came from my dad, and he said, "You're making a mountain out of a molehill." And it was because my mom did not address things in the moment in a respectful, assertive way. She stored it, stuffed it, hid it under a rug, and then all of a sudden it would blow up into something huge. And then my dad would look at me like, seriously, I didn't put my shoes in the mudroom, and you're getting, but it wasn't all about the shoes. It was the pattern that she had built up in herself that she never resolved in the moment. She let it pile on and create something bigger, and it turned into a mountain, and it's not good.
Yeah. And some of those little things, you didn't address them. Some of them, if they're that little, then you need to trash them.
Truly let them go.
Like, seriously, like you use the example of the shoes. Like, if it's that small and life is a lot bigger than that, you both come to an agreement like, hey, this is what we want to work on with these boots, but I'm not going to make the boots a big issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say, I've heard this from couples before where if the wife is kind of a neat freak and the husband doesn't respect her desire and stuff, and she keeps nagging on him, and he kind of just literally doesn't want to even do it because he feels nagged, then it really goes down to the I statement of, I feel disrespected when you don't even, help me out. And then he'll say, I feel disrespected when you keep nagging at me. And so it's like, okay, we're getting down to where the anger is coming from. Is it really about the shoes, or is it about not wanting to help or not willing to speak respectfully to each other? So let's get down to the core.
Yeah. Help your partner help you. Okay. Help your partner to help you better. So I could guess how I could not offend Linda or upset Linda. I could guess like, well, maybe I'll start doing this way or whatever. But it's so much more effective if I say, okay, obviously I'm not doing this well, and I see I'm not doing it well. And I don't like this going on. What can I do? How would you like me to go about this particular thing?
Yeah, help me understand.
Yeah, ask, and then they have to be very responsible at how they direct. If they go, well, I don't know, you should know, you should figure it out because this is ridiculous. No. They're asking for your help because they're not getting it very well. So help them. So like I would appreciate that in the future. You get upset with me, please don't refer to me by my mother's name. Okay, so that I would be calling Linda by her mother's name, and I'd get her all fired up, and I'd say, okay, what can I do to do better? And she'd say, from now on, like if you're upset with me, don't refer to me by my mother's name. Oh, yeah. That one really ticked you off, huh? I don't need to use that anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And so, none of us are perfect. And, we've worked through a lot of issues over the years. And I know that, my family and your family maybe has had arguments, though, that maybe we've learned from and grown from. And that's the goal, right? We want to really learn and grow. None of us are perfect. Okay. And we all need grace. And so let's try to be generous with that, with forgiveness and grace. But then let's have some healthy boundaries. If you're really feeling disrespected, if you feel out of control, if you feel there's a level of mistrust, let's have those hard conversations and really drill down to how we can help each other.
Yeah. So the challenge, all right, if you've listened to the show or you've shared the show with somebody who you've seen repeated arguments that just seem silly or crazy, the challenge is this. Let's call it out. Let's do this in a way that we call one of our reset meetings, okay? So let's say, you know what, can we have a conversation tonight? And let's come around the table. and let's state what it is that we're actually going to address. Okay. And I want you to boil it down to those base words, okay, of that control, that respect, that trust, that love, that affection, those basic ideas of like, I feel like when you just don't tell me where you're going at night and you just show up at home at night at whatever, and I never know whether to have dinner ready or not, I just feel like I can't trust you anymore. I don't know what you're doing, and that trust is hurting me. So now you're not pointing out, because if you just point out like he's 20 minutes late, he'll be like, oh my gosh, it's 20 minutes.
Right.
But it's a trust issue. So help yourself by getting down to this and starting having these conversations. Practice the ground rules, right? Yeah. So, if we have one of those situations where in the middle of that conversation, things kind of go bad, call a timeout right there. Call a timeout like, okay, listen, we're not ready, all right? And break it right there and walk away. And that's okay to do that, because that shows good intention. Like, I don't want this to go bad. I'm trying to get this to work well. Call that time out, step away, but the idea that we are going to come back and I'm going to rethink in my mind, like, what's the best thing for our marriage?
Yeah. So we hope that this has helped. Again, we're not perfect. We still have things that trigger things and push buttons. But again, we're looking for patterns, okay? It's not a one and done. They were 20 minutes late. It's not that. It's over and over again, you see a pattern that is upsetting you or frustrating you or resentment is building. And this is something that you want to address before it turns into a cancer that grows and kills your relationship.
All right. So we want to thank our sponsors again. We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions, Hummel Insurance Group, and Maxwell Construction for them just coming alongside of Rock Solid Radio and lending the support that they do. We also are asking all of you out there who are listening, please help us build this community by sharing shows, by giving us 5-star ratings, by having conversations like this. There's all kinds of things to talk about. How about let's talk about some things that are going to build the family and build the marriage. Yeah. Nobody hurts in that game, right? So help us by promoting this. And we just appreciate you guys. The sponsorship and the donations have been amazing.
Yeah.
And so
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support of Rock Solid Radio, Rock Solid Families, because we're all building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
It's time to burn the blue pants.
We never bought them.
We're going to burn the story. Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.